Hello, everybody. How we doing?
Welcome to Conversations and Coffee with Interior Talent, part 2 of our series. Thank you for tuning in today.
We're super excited to be here. Thanks so much. Hopefully you guys got a chance to see our last week's episode. It's you can see that on our website, but we're super excited. Today we're so thankful that we're going to be having our wonderful Foxtail coffee. Thanks so much to Foxtail. This is the Farmhouse Blend right here in Winter Park, Florida. Awesome guys. Shout out to Ian and all of his folks. They have 13 locations, so thanks so much to them for helping us out with great coffee. It's fantastic, by the way.
So good.
A wise owl told me it's fantastic, and I believe him. So anyway, so here we are. We're going to be talking about some good stuff, and this is really acing the interview. Last week we talked about, what do you do to prepare? Today we're going to talk about acing it, right? So how do you get ready to go? So we're going to cover virtual and in-person interviews. We know that we just don't interview enough, right? And who should, right? So a lot of the people on this call, on this live, are designers and architects. So I always tell you, don't think of it as an interview. Think of it as a presentation to a client.
Mm-hmm.
You do this a million times, right?
Right. You're selling yourself.
Yeah, we're constantly telling you guys when we're prepping our candidates, think of it as a presentation. So you're doing that, and you're just going to be great. So we're going to cover it, and like I said, in 2 parts. We're going to start off with Bree's going to be talking about the virtual interview, and we'll kind of go from there. So Bree, share some good stuff to me.
Well, just to start out with, we kind of talked about this last week, is control your controllables. So, for the most part right now, a lot of people are doing virtual interviews. There's tons of tools out there. We've done several posts ourselves about how to ace a virtual interview. But make sure that you're controlling your controllables. So, like I said last week, figure out what platform your interview is going to take place on. Do you have to download that interview? Because if you do, you need to do that at least the day before so that you can iron out any issues that you have with that. Control your background. I know there's only so much that you can do, but please make sure that you don't have anything distracting or questionable in the background behind you. Please, please, please say no to the virtual backgrounds. They're really fun if you know everyone on the call, but if you are making a first impression to an interview, we need to see you. We don't need to be distracted by the beach scene behind you.
I love the beach scene. I mean, I've seen everyone, Star Wars, Mall. They're like great,
right,
but just not the right time to do it.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. And you still want to make sure that even if it's virtual, you are caring about your appearance.
Yeah, so it's important to what you're wearing. Listen, no lie. When back in the day, I was comfortable working at home, sitting around my boxers, all great, right? We're kind of back in that world where we're working from home, and it's kind of you're relaxed, right? So you're thinking, all right, well, I don't need to worry about what I'm wearing. I'm going to be on a virtual, dress the part. There's more than just looking the part, it's feeling the part, right? Feeling confident in what you're wearing. I mean, everyone's been relaxed, people growing beards, letting themselves go, whatever this last couple months, but you got to look sharp. So making sure you're dressing the part. If you're going in for an executive level position, dress like an executive. If you're going for someone that's going to be client facing, dress the part. So the full shebang. Suit, dress, making sure not too much makeup, and you're just really looking good. So make sure you're not just waist up, you're the whole deal. Okay, that's really important.
Something that I was always told growing up when I was interviewing is you dress for the job you want, not necessarily the job that you have.
That's right.
So keep that in mind. It's better to be overdressed than underdressed, in my opinion. So we've covered that. Now you are actually logging on. You are in the video interview. What do you do now? Because this is totally new, but you've got a great background behind you. Your connection is there. A big thing in interviews is taking notes. A lot of times people want to take notes, whatever's important to them, whether that's your compensation you're talking about, the day-to-day responsibilities. A lot of times your body language says a lot during these calls. The person that you're interviewing with might not be able to tell that you are taking notes. So our best advice is if you're going to be taking notes, let your interviewer know beforehand so that they know you're just taking notes, you're not dozing off, you're on Facebook on your other screen, everything like that. Your second tip is many times you're going to be in a multi-person interview. So it's not just you and one other person. You might be meeting 2 people, you might be meeting 10, you never know. Anytime you're not talking, it's best to mute yourself. You never know what kind of feedback your connection might be picking up. And we get that all the time. There's rarely a conference call where someone is not saying, hey, make sure you're on mute. So
Totally.
don't be that person.
Exactly. And what's important is that it's really hard to, but you got to make eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a big difference when you're on your laptop and you're on these Zoom calls. Everyone's looking out. You're looking at yourself to see how you look. That's just human nature.
Right.
You're looking at that person speaking, but you can't connect. So right now I'm looking at me, but when I look at the camera, you can totally tell that I'm looking right into you, and we're looking right at you. And so important when you're doing that, you're having that virtual conversation. Your computer's at eye level. Bring it in. Don't focus on the picture, focus on the camera. What I do on my laptop, if I'm having a really important call, I put a little smiley sticker right next to the camera, and it really helps me to connect. So make sure you're giving eye contact the best you can.
Yep. Body language is always important. So, making sure that you're not crossing your arms, and whether it's in person or virtual, you still want to conduct yourself and be exactly the same as you would with the other. The next thing we're going to dive into is preparing questions for your interview. It's important to let your interviewer present the job, present the information before you dive into all the questions that you have. Don't be afraid to talk about the current state of affairs. We're getting this question a lot. People are wanting to know, wherever they're interviewing, they want to know how this company has handled COVID or is handling COVID currently. So don't be afraid to address it. It doesn't come across as judgmental. It's all about being as conversational as possible. You can totally dive into it and, be lighthearted and say, how are you guys holding up? I mean, how have you enjoyed working remote? And share your own experiences.
Yeah, you can put a positive spin on it, but listen, it's reality, and everyone is understanding of that. So, I noticed that when we started this whole pandemic, my questions were usually a little more on the negative side, like a little more fearful. Now they're much more positive. Like, how does everyone handle the remote? It's been kind of fun to be able to work from home. Are you transitioning to a blended time in the office? Bring that up and then let them decide what direction they want to go with it. If they want to get more deeper into the conversation, it's okay. But it really does affect you, so you need to make sure that how they've been handling it makes you feel comfortable. If they're just willy-nilly and they're not worried about face masks or sanitizers, is that going to put you in an uncomfortable situation? You need to know that. So.
Exactly, and we are seeing as things progress that a lot of rural areas or smaller offices, they're actually starting to transition to in-person interviews, and we have all your tips for that as well. It's something that we are talking about pretty constantly. Anytime we're doing interview prep, it definitely comes up.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend?
Because we're in this different environment, right? So it's not what we're normal. So, you got to be prepared for that. The biggest thing is that don't go into it thinking that it's normal. It's not normal. So we got to make sure that you're preparing. First of all, you got to know what your state's doing. Is your state requiring masks? Are you requiring to have certain kind of protocols? What is the CDC saying for your area? So if you're, like Bree just said, more non-metropolitan areas, we see people more and more into face-to-face, or going into face-to-face rather than virtual, and it's going to start evolving quickly, so we got to be prepared for it. But, listen, the fact is you got to be prepared. So bring a mask, bring sanitizer, bring gloves, bring wipes, all have that discreetly put away, whether it's in your purse or in your pocket, your jacket pocket, if you're wearing a suit, and making sure that you're prepared to put them on. If you walk in, you see everybody's got a mask on, put that baby on, right? If you see people have gloves on, put gloves on. You have to be prepared for all that. Don't feel uncomfortable. That if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, you can wear a mask. It's okay.
Yeah.
No one's going to judge you on that. The handshake. Right? So it's a different time. You're used to like, hey, how you doing? I'm Ken Roberts. Nice to meet you. You can't do that anymore, right? So if you find someone's coming in for a handshake, if you feel comfortable, great. But what I've learned is if I go in for a handshake and they're not comfortable with it, I move it to a fist bump, baby. Bump it out. Come on, bump it out, right?
Just turn it into a wave that they don't even go for
little
that.
wave, virtual high five. Might be a little weird, but you can do it. So you got to be prepared for that, right? You got to have all the tools. You got to look in the part. You can put these things to the side. Sanitizer, wipes, all those things are important. Look in the part, even more important, right? When you're going face to face. Bring it back to that presentation. When you're sitting down and you're making a presentation to a client, you look sharp. You're looking great. You're feeling good. Not too much makeup. No cologne or perfume. Just looking really sharp, but making sure you're set, right? Give yourself some time to arrive on time. You want to be there between 10 and 15 minutes, no earlier than that. You don't want to arrive too early because if you do, you catch the person off guard and there might be, handling handling something. They might be finishing another interview. You don't. That's a little awkward. Right? So make sure you know where you're going. You're parking correctly, giving yourself ample time to get into the space, but make sure you are early. Right? You want to show you're punctual and on time, and that's an important part of the process.
Yeah.
Interviewing is all tests. It's a series of tests, and if you pass them all, you have a better shot.
Yeah.
And so that's one of them. So, but when you arrived, Bree, tell me about when you arrived here for your interview.
Well, luckily I allowed myself a little more time because I got lost here. But I came in. It's important to connect with your interviewer because you're going to be spending a lot of time with these people. So it's fantastic if you can cross every box off the job description, but your soft skills speak a lot louder sometimes. People want to hire people they want to be around. Please remember that yes, you come here to do work, but you also come here and you kind of join a family in a sense, especially if it is a small team. So find a way to connect with your interviewer. My favorite tip that I was ever told and that I constantly tell people is when you go to test run, see where the office is, see what's around, you never know, you could have something that's rather significant right there near the office. So when you go into that interview and they say, hey, did you find the office okay? You can definitely throw in, yeah, I had no idea that your office was here. I go to the Thai place right around the corner all the time. Have you been there? That opens the door to something other than the job. They're going to see a little bit of your personality. They're going to get to know who you are, just a little bit about things that you like. So don't be afraid to talk about things that aren't job related in an interview.
Yeah, that connection is super important. You got to be prepared, right? So you're prepared for all these things. You got to make sure that you're bringing the proper tools with you, right? Just as if you went into a presentation.
Right.
So we're going to bring what we're going to bring. We're bringing multiple copies of our resume.
Yeah.
Right.
With the COVID situation, you still want to bring the copies of your resume. You want to bring at least 3 to 4, I would say, because you never know who's going to join in. But go ahead, find out the interviewer's email information or the hiring manager's information in the email. Email them a copy well before your interview so that if they're more comfortable just printing it themselves, they can. They still have something to reference during your interview. And if they don't take the ones that you printed yourself, don't take it personal. Yeah,
that's fine. But you got to make sure you bring your portfolio. And a digital platform for portfolios what I recommend as opposed to a printed copy. And we would normally say print up your resume and attach some imagery to it so that you can kind of leave behind, which is part of your portfolio, your resume. You can have that in a digital format to make sure you email that again to them in a thank you. But you want to make sure you have multiple copies, you have your portfolio all put together. Biggest thing is making sure that when you open it up, it's right onto the portfolio. You don't have some weird screensavers, all that stuff. And by the way, we forgot to mention that about sharing your screen. If you have the opportunity in a virtual interview, they actually want to present a project, make sure you're prepared for that you don't have anything weird on your screen, and that you can just go right to it, because I've seen some really awkward things happen with that.
Close your other windows.
Yeah. So that's important. And the other thing is I wanted to make sure that you guys know is, you can have some printed copies, and you can leave those behind. They may take them, may not take them, we don't know, but that's fine. Making sure that you're getting business cards with these people that you're meeting so you can send thank yous and send that virtual thank you to them. So all that stuff's super important. But really, the big thing is getting through the interview to make sure that you are getting the information. It's 3 parts to an interview. Really getting to understand the company, understand the job, and really making sure they understand who you are and what you bring to the table.
Absolutely.
So it's super important. So that being said, let's next week we're going to be talking about the post interview. To make sure you're all ready to go, make sure you have that stuff. So we're going to be picking our winner real shortly, but I don't know if we have any questions or not for today, but we got some really good, thank you so much everybody that came on, and we appreciate you guys being part of this wonderful event. So let's see, our winner for this week,
Eileen Lestrange.
All right.
Congratulations.
You got some cool stuff. So you got coffee, you got some cold brew, and you got an interior talent mug. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
This will be put in the mail shortly. One of our team members will be contacting you, so keep an eye out for your direct messages on Instagram. we'll get all your information and we'll get this going.
Yeah, don't forget next week, June 4th, is our next one, Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern. We really appreciate everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have another cup of coffee, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. More free coffee.
Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.